Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Seduced by Jill Sharon Kimmelman. I had always privately scoffed at the notions that a lover's touch could truly cause fair skin to blush, that a single kiss bestowed could render one silly, sly with desire. Such things found in poems and novels were nothing but crafted fiction, or so I thought. I know better now. My skin still carries the imprint of your touch. With the brilliance of clarity, I recall the taste of sweet and savage kisses. Pleasure beyond any imagining still sings within my veins, sweeter than any nectar upon the tongue, and louder than the fiercest pain. Seduced, a poem by Jill Sharon Kimmelman.
Hi, welcome to the World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host on this Valentine's Day. Today we're doing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band for Valentine's. If you guys out there don't have anything else you have to do, just join us on the show today. Watch what exciting discussion we have on poetry and the arts and its relation to love, Valentine's, a little personal notes from each other here. I have Melissa Chappelle, who is our renegade pastor, poet, and extraordinaire on the lute. She's with me today, and we're going to just have a little discussion on love and poetry and the arts, and how that is something that will be topical for the day. It's like a lot of people are in love, and a lot of people are looking for love. I mean, what is it about love that we love? Well, that's a good question to ask to start us off. So what is it we're seeking when we want to love somebody?
I just want to comment that little video we saw on Seduced, I think that's what most people are out there doing while we're doing our little interview here.
Probably. Getting seduced or seducing. One or the other.
That's right.
There's Casanovas out there playing around.
Okay.
I wouldn't doubt it.
What are we seeking in someone we love?
That's a good question to start with. It's an interesting and perplexing riddle. Why does love move the world so much? What is it that we love about love? I mean, we talk about it constantly. We say it to people we care about, and sometimes we say it off kilter when it doesn't need to be said, or when it isn't supposed to be said, or in some situations where it's just kind of like a peacekeeping thing, like, I care about you, I love you as a person. It's a powerful word, a powerful phrase to just say I love somebody. So why do you think that is? What is it? And poets are so enamored with love. I mean, we're like the most passionate people on the planet. And it's something we can, I think we can relate to is good love poetry. Anyone out there has probably read a good love poem at some point in their lives.
Well, I just think it's from the beginning of even in biblical times, love is a very powerful thing. I'm a pastor, so I'm going to talk like this, but
it's fine.
The Lord God loved his people first of all.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first kind of love. as he loved creation and took joy in creation.
Mm-hmm.
And we often forget that was the first kind of love, and that God loved us so much that he brought us into being,
Mm-hmm.
and saw that it was good, and took joy in us. And
Right.
and I think that that's a part of love, is taking joy in another person, and you know, and in their being. And I think that's something very important to remember, because I think we forget a lot about taking joy in one another.
Absolutely. It's
But
very scary, times right now, and I think one of the reasons is we've lost sight of one another. Each of us face our own private struggles, and each of us face our own private joys, and we lost sight of the humanness. We're so focused on ourselves these days, I think, that it becomes like a blockage, and we're all like, I'm in my personal experience, so many people are hurt and suffering, and a lot of times they lash out, or they I think that's what the world is experiencing now with this isolation from the pandemic, which we're just barely coming out of. In some parts of the world, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And it's going to be hard for us to adapt to coming back to the world, I think. And I think you're definitely right on saying that creation, is instilled with the joy and love of creating it. So what is the force that is bringing us to this darkness? I mean, it happens to us on a personal level. It happens to us on a social level. Sometimes history and war happens, and we have the refugee crisis is at the border, things of that nature. And I think it's really important, that we focus a little, a bit about the idea that we all have needs. All of us have personal needs and boundaries, but we also have to recognize other people do as well. And I think it's hard for us to address those needs and wants sometimes, especially as we said at the beginning with seduction.
right.
Sexuality is so tricky. It is a tricky business.
And that's a good point, because we are, I believe, at a very dark time in our world's history.
Mm-hmm.
And what does
we're more united now than ever, and at the same time, the unitedness doesn't really bring us the satisfaction we would expect.
Right. And my question is, what does love have to say to that? What does love bring to that? And how do you communicate love to that, and what difference does love make in that? And I would say again, I would go back to my biblical roots, that most of the time, in scripture, well, not most of the time, I should take that back, but the most interesting passages to preach, and most often the passages that we were assigned in our lectionary, those are our assigned readings for Sunday, and our Old Testament readings, the Hebrews were screwing up, had done something to screw up, and were bringing all kinds of calamity upon themselves. But it always ended with God loving them nevertheless.
Right.
There's always a nevertheless there, that God would love them. And in all this darkness, and some of the disunification that we see, there's got to be a nevertheless with love. And there's love is more, I think, than just when we talk about love, we talk about it as just being an emotion,
right,
or a feeling. But I think love is something more profound than that.
I have an interesting segment of a poem that I was going to read by John Updike, and it's from the poem South of the Alps. And I think that kind of addresses a lot of what you say. And this is, you can get this in his collected poetry. And I want to read this portion of it. This is just part of the poem. Beauty, deep and hawk to time, is reckless with its assets. I, a cowardly ward hoarder, hugged my wish to smudge more proofs with dubious corrections. She was clean copy, her future a back issue. Of course I had adored her, though my fate was a midge on her wrist she could twitch away. The Old Testament said truly, fear is love, and love is rigid making fear. Very interesting poem, and that's an interesting way to judge that quality. You know, that fear may be the root. And it says, you know, I mean, speaking again from biblical perspectives, it does say fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So, and that God is love. And so, what relationship does some of our own personal fears and so forth have in relation to the our world? I mean, how does fear and love build the world in a certain way? You know, can we discipline fear to be something of compassion? Is there a way to address our our various heartaches and lonelinesses and desires in a way that is kind of like we're solitary by nature, I think, because we were confined to our bodies and our own minds. We can't really tread past somebody and read somebody's thoughts unless you're telepathic, which unless you're an X-Man, I don't think most of us can do that. But I think it's important we recognize, there's solitude in the human condition, and how do we transcend our own barrier, our personal self?
Well, I think it's important to note too that I don't think that fear, when it's used biblically, is I don't think it means like oh, run away.
Right.
I don't think it means that. I think it means something in the nature of awe.
The sickness unto death is another phrase that's used that may be easily misapplied to sounds pessimistic, like we're sick, we have the sickness unto death until we face resurrection, or until we face the coming of Christ, right, and so forth. I mean, to me, it's all poetry. It's right. Poetry, and it defines the human condition in such a way that, in my opinion, it's beautiful. It's an excellent way of describing. These are people that are struggling with themselves, understanding the culture they live in, the environment, and they're taming it. And so I think that it's something powerful. And I think a lot of cultures, we're speaking from our side of the world. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people on the Eastern side have different views of the same project, so I don't know enough about it to talk about it. But I think that we're all looking at the world in different ways. And there's these cultures that are really impressively create these beautiful works of art that we should revere and respect and think of as powerful and not feel like they're demanding of us. They're not really demanding so much of us as expecting something from us.
Right. And I think that a part of love, this is kind of going down another pathway.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the ways that we can truly love another person, or truly engage and love the world, love God, is by first learning about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And loving ourselves, and all the just to be transparent, I'm in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in therapy for 23 years, and I've learned some pretty scary things about myself.
I imagine there's some stuff embedded in our persons that it's really hard to not be scared of yourself sometimes.
Yeah, and it makes me want to do, I think it was in Monty Python, and I just said, run away. But we can't do that, because we have to reconcile ourselves to ourselves and learn to accept those parts of ourselves that are frightening.
Absolutely.
And have compassion on those parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the commercialized type of love in our society um is kind of like I don't want to trivialize all this, but it's kind of like that movie that Mike, what's his name, used to be in with the mini me and
Austin Powers.
yeah, Austin Powers, and he'd say, "Oh, you complete me, you complete me," you know. and and I think, but really, I think that's kind of a sentiment, a common sentiment.
Yeah, it is.
People, you complete me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, I read some of Rilke, and he says something totally opposite of that.
Right.
He says we need to be complete within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought these two quotes
Excellent.
that let's see.
This is Wilke,
Yeah,
German poet, wonderful, wonderful writer.
this is from Poet's Guide to Life.
Mm-hmm.
Before a human being thinks of others, he must have been unapologetically himself. He must have taken the measure of his nature in order to master it and employ it for the benefit of others like himself. And this other quote comes from Letters to a Young Poet.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I really like.
Yeah.
I hold this to be the highest task of a bond between two people, that each should stand guard over the solitude of the other. For if it lies in the nature of indifference and of the crowd to recognize no solitude, then love and friendship are there for the purpose of continually providing the opportunity for solitude, and only those are the true sharings which rhythmically interrupt periods of deep isolation.
And speaking of marriage, I came upon this poem, and I'd like to read this as well. It's called Valentine's Day for Kristen Pennington, and it's by Kevin Pennington. He's been on the show, and this is a really complex and beautiful poem. You are the one I think of at night. You are the one I wake to in the morning. You are my sweet wife, and I am dedicated to you in a million ways, linked by an invisible cord that binds us and frees us. I wear my ring proudly on this Valentine's Day. You are so beautiful, I can't contain myself. I lick my lips and explode like a meteor entering the atmosphere, a ball of burning fire, an erection come to fruition, a climax as we burst into the future together. Isn't that a powerful poem about marriage? I mean, about being in love,
Yes,
really truly being in love with somebody. You burst
yes,
into the future
it
together.
is.
Really beautiful and passionate. Thank you, Kevin Pennington, for throwing that poem our way. It's wonderful, beautiful, and I'm glad that we have poetry in the world to tell people what we feel and think, and it's a wonderful expression. And those were great Wilke quotes on the nature of solitude, nature of being in the world, and how we have to recognize who we are to master that person who we are, even those dark zones. I think that's very important.
And I have a Rilke poem.
Excellent.
This is called Love Song. Take my
Okay.
glasses off here. Print's kind of small. Love Song. How can I keep my soul in me so that it doesn't touch your soul? How can I raise it high enough past you to other things? I would like to shelter it among remote, lost objects in some dark and silent place that doesn't resonate when your depths resound. Yet everything that touches us, me and you, takes us together like a violin's bow, which draws one voice out of two separate strings. Upon what instrument are we to span, and what musician holds us in his hand? Oh, sweetest song.
Wow.
Isn't that just it's gorgeous?
It is. It's beautiful. I mean, he's really a poet of love and tenderness, as well as he recognizes the solitude within the human condition, as the previous quotes, recognizing the two strings vibrating on one instrument, kind of, that's just incredible, and I think it's wondrous that we have, again, I want to say that poetry, music, the arts, they flourish, with people who are not only lonely but have loving hearts and have the deepest compassion for human sorrow and suffering, and also have great joy in life. It's a very mixed state of being, to notice and recognize and accept that life is full of immense difficulty, and that you have compassion for those who have difficulty, and you find joy in that feeling.
Right.
There's a poem I wanted to read too as well, and I just recently reviewed this book for World Literature Today. It's from the Calcutta Cadence. We'll hold this up, and this is by a good friend of mine, Sophia Khatun, and it's called "The Pomegranate Tree." My cousin Nishat and I picked dried pomegranate flowers and sewed a city within the pollens, a city without conflicting tongues. I am constantly cleaning my hands that built this garden from barren concrete. It wants to be reborn into a moon on the edge, with asylums for those who never find homes. Main Asman, she has a lot of, I'm guessing this is Hindi. I'm going to read it the English. I asked the sky for the address of the city of wind, pour some drops from the elixir of light on my palms. They'll find some relief. The exhaustion of loving a displaced body is only known to the swarming dragonflies. Sleep in me when you haven't found belonging in the isolation of your mind, fighting boundaries in the pandemic of the absurdity of hate. Part 2. Blue dasher under the pomegranate tree shade skims on the puddle of water shed from the cleaning the world. Is it confessing love to its reflection, or is it the image of apocalypse consuming us? Musin doesn't call for prayers. The evening arati does not reach my garden anymore. Everything is disappearing. I inject perseverance on the tree trunk that sometimes feels like an age-old cityscape on the brink of becoming obsolete. The first half-ripened pomegranate ami plucked cracked in my anxious mouth and refused to disperse. Survive. The clouds form and conform on my temple and on the bridge of my eyes. The sky is beginning to breathe again. Beautiful. That's the last poem in the book. And she recently released her own book. I think it's called Germination, a new book that she just published. So that's really, it's gorgeous. So it's a wonderful, way to express. In poetry and the arts, we can communicate depth of soul. That's why I think so many lonely people find refuge in poetry, because there's so much is weighing us down, and yet we're exalted in some way. And that's why poets are spoken of as kind of exalted warriors for the soul.
Right.
And writers in general, it's like a very tough business. It's a very tough, way to take your life into account going towards writing. Being a writer, it's like a sacred profession. I mean, all of the scribes and the prophets were writers, and so it's something very powerful, and it brings to light, certain truths about human nature, and unfolds a lot of things in us that are deep and sorrowful and mysterious, and we can say things in poetry we can't say otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a wondrous thing, and it's powerful, and it's just like Kevin Pennington's poem, where he talks about being like a meteor or an erection coming to climax, and storming into the future.
Right. And I have a poem to share.
Okay.
Not as good as he is.
All right.
No, every form has its place. So
Absolutely.
I just actually finished mine about 20 minutes before the broadcast started, and this is a very old one that I just reworked.
Okay.
It's kind of a sad poem about fling where I'll be transparent, and about a fling where I fell in love with a fellow and he didn't fall in love with me.
Right.
So anyway, it's called In Places Hard to Find. Once again, I'm going to take off my glasses. In places hard to find. Time was a blue trailing meteor flashing across the glinting coal of my eyes, defying the serene still spheres, floating, then paper moons folding, slipping to the floor, clothes in vast disarray, from one space to another. He and I searching naked, because fucking scatters inhibitions in places hard to find. 4 passing weeks were the spangled river of our milky galaxy, a riot of undoing, rocking me into a cloud of unknowing, in which I breached my vow. The mark of blood on him wailed silently over my wastrel love, yet in my mourning he held me fast. In the starry pool of his shoulder were moss, birch, wine, the tannins of goodbye. I had sworn to the gods of the spheres to withhold my love for him, because loving scatters the heart in places hard to find.
Wow. Beautiful. We're going to take a brief break, but we'll be right back with some more talk on Valentine's Day. Thanks for joining us today.
Keep watching the New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome back to the show. And if you're watching today, right now, I would love for you guys to subscribe to our channel. And we're talking about love, obligation, solitude, things of love that are most important to the human condition, duty, respect, honor, all the things that we're missing in today's world. We read some poetry, and we all go through heartbreaks. We all go through tumultuous love affairs in our life. Most of us have had those experiences and just take them as beautiful. You may not have one today, a date today. So we're here for the lonely hearts. We're out here talking about what is love, what is the meaning of love. So, Melissa just read a wonderful poem, which was better than I think she realizes, in which she describes a love affair that, has gone from present to past. And so tell us a little bit about the genesis of that poem, how you worked it out and found the images you discovered for that work.
Well, it started as an extremely short poem because I wrote it in 2018, and it was first published in Harbinger Asylum.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I considered it as kind of a skeleton for me to use, and I just the relationship that I had with this fellow was very brief, and I couldn't think of a better metaphor than, and I guess it's kind of cliche, but I thought of the meteor, and so I decided to use space as the context of this, the meteor and all that, and I wanted to talk about in the initial poem I had this idea of how in love relationships, so this really wasn't a love relationship, it was just a fling, but the metaphor of the clothes being lost everywhere and not being able to find them, I use that to talk about how you lose your inhibitions, and not being, your inhibitions are scattered and places hard to find, and you behave in ways that you never thought you would really behave.
Right.
And, so anyway, I continued on with the space theme, and I wondered, quite often I'll come up with things in my poems, and after I come up with them, I wondered what I really meant by it.
Right.
And I came up with this thing about the mark of blood on him wailed silently, and I think that was when I said I breached my vow, and the mark of blood on him wailed silently over my wastrel love. So I think what I did there is that I was just talking about a serious loss of something, very valuable to me.
Right.
A loss of my own love, which was like blood, which is vital to me.
Right. Interesting. It's an interesting way of expressing that.
And then the blood wailed silently over my wastrel love. It was being kind of hard on my love right there. My this is good for nothing love. Since it's not being shared by him, it's good for nothing.
Right. Absolutely. There's like a difference that people don't recognize in a lot of contemporary culture, because it's being pushed on us, is that there's a difference between sexuality and love. Love can be sexual, and it's a commitment. It's and it's also a way of letting your inhibitions loose, as you say, but it's also a way of restraining those inhibitions simultaneously, and letting your compassion and your self-interest go for a moment, to allow yourself to go into another person in a way that is respectful and kind to them. Your heart goes out to that person, and through compassion and through basic empathy, or and then there's that hierarchy of like empathy, sympathy. Your difference between really empathizing and simply feeling sympathy for a person. There's so many ways love can be expressed. Love can be explored. It's immense. It's a great power.
Right.
And poetry,
Exactly right.
yeah, poetry and the arts are one place where that power is compacted and through images, words, sounds, what other kind of expressions that we can come up with as human beings using our own minds and our own forces that we have available to us biologically speaking, our bodies, our mouths, our whatever it is, I mean, it's amazing how immense and yet creative, that capacity is.
Yeah, that's right. And I just want to add one more thing about my poem.
Okay.
Is that at the end here, I kind of imply that the gods of the spheres had warned me to withhold my love or not to love, because loving scatters the heart in places hard to find.
Wow, it's powerful.
So anyway,
that's a beautiful. I mean, maybe there was like an omen in your life, in your mind at the time. It was like, yeah, be careful here. This is not a permanent state. It does that to me too. Like, I don't know if it's a voice or if it's a intuition when I'm in like a relationship or a friendship with somebody or any number of other kind of things. There's certain things that you think and assume about people that that are present during the that process. And I find that a lot of times those intuitions come out and they develop into something, whether it's a loss or if it's a commitment, a committed relationship, or if it's a death sentence. Not really, but metaphorically speaking, that happens. People suffer and die from loneliness, and we definitely need the arts for that reason, to keep people with spirit alive, happy. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion of the program?
Well, I would just if anybody is, Valentine's Day is a day that I think for people who are alone, it kind of tends to increase our loneliness. And if you're a person who tends to be lonely and depressed, make sure you find some kind of way to tend to yourself into that depression. And if that's something that you struggle with, and call a friend, or if it helps you to put on some music or to read some poetry, or to express yourself in whatever way really feels good to you, or feels like a companion to you. But if you are deeply lonely, get help for it, because there are ways to deal with that. So
much more constructive than living in isolation.
Right.
Find friends, whether it's on the phone, internet, or just sit down and read enjoy time to yourself and read some beautiful love poetry or some beautiful poetry. This doesn't have to be a day of love. It can be a day of solitude and learning about oneself.
Right.
Excellent statement. So I think we said quite a bit in 40 minutes, under 40 minutes, about the nature of love and the arts, and explored it quite a bit. It was quite a wonderful program. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Been watching World Inkers Network. Today was our Valentine's special discussion of love, the arts, poetry, the movements of the spheres. We read quite a few poems. If you missed that, go back and watch. We read some statements from Wilka. We read a couple of poems from friends of ours, from our own poetry. So get a look at that. It's an excellent program. If you missed it, then please go back and watch the beginning on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. And while you're at it, if you have any money to donate to our program to keep us alive and well and functioning in the loving manner that we are functioning, well, you can do that at paypal.me/nyparrot. paypal.me/nyparrot. If you want to be a guest on the program, we'd love to have you. We're anticipating more guests. So please send a paragraph bio as well as a headshot, a couple of samples of your work. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what you're doing. And we want to talk about your artistic endeavors and your hopes and dreams and all the things that make you tick. We'll explore those and what makes you the great artist you are, because you are great, whether you realize it or not. If you're not rich and famous, that doesn't make you not great. Just remember that. On this day of love, we share our compassion with you. Thanks for being on the program, Melissa Chappelle. And thanks for you guys out there watching right now. I want you guys to do me a favor and pick up that pen, get to writing. Have a great afternoon. Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. World Inkers Monthly Magazine is a fine source for your literary interests. It's an all-source magazine with poetry, prose, and essays and articles, as well as interviews. It's all full-color art and photography from a variety of voices and artists. You will find this magazine entertaining. This is an all-purpose readership, and we are looking for new voices. This sleek, full-color edition of World Inkers Monthly Magazine will be something pleasant for your eyes as well as for your mind. And we're looking for authors for one book promotion in the magazine. If you're a business, we want to promote your business. You may submit your book reviews, your academic or non-academic articles on the humanities and the arts, as well as your literary writing and creative output to publication.worldinkers@gmail.com.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV.